Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Elsa.
Welcome to the interview of your first solo show in Asia, Beyond Light.
Thanks for inviting me. That's really nice.
Yeah, let me start the question. Since when did you know you want to be an artist and why?
Even as a child, I always did drawings and little watercolor paintings and stuff like that. And actually, I don't know why. I was always into art because I grew up in a really small town in Bavaria, and art was not a big thing there. But I was always interested. I went always to the library and borrowed books about art, and there are of course some things I really got amazed, like for the futurism. And I started as a kid to copy the Buccioni. Buccioni is a really famous futurism painter, and he tried to paint the dynamics, movements. And I was totally amazed. So I started to copy him as a kid, and then I started to create my own Buccioni. And I was always painting my whole life, and drawing. And actually, I don't know why. Probably that's the reason I became an artist, because there was always something in me to create things. There is probably, I don't think there, as an artist, you grow up and when you're 25 you decide, okay, now I become an artist. I think you have it always in you. That's my belief.
So we see nowadays neon lights or light show everywhere outside the building facade, in the bar, in the pubs, everywhere. And how do you see your light as a fine art, different from those light shows on the street? How do you see the difference?
I was always amazed in neon signs and stuff like that. I watched documentaries about neon signs, for example, in Las Vegas. I was always amazed about that and fascinated, but that had nothing to do with my work. For me, light or the technique of light is just like using a brush. Like the painter needs a brush and I use techniques. And it was not, I become a light artist, so it was a development step by step, because I studied paintings, and it comes step by step of like using new materials. So it had nothing to do with neon size or stuff like that. It's more like, because the difference between neon size and art is the content. I try to put stories or content in my work, like a painter. So I just have a different brush in a way.
So, for over 20 years, you started from painting to photography and to light art. And in your artist career, are there anything inspire you or you remember the most?
I mean, the most, of course, there are some artists I found really incredibly great, or I really loved, like Victor Vasarely. I still remember when the first time I went to a show of Victor Vasarely, I was totally amazed about his colors and how he can paint these three-dimensional forms without any computer. He painted that without a computer. But I always try to find my own way, and that's the important way for me. And it was more like a development from paintings, coming from painting into like installation pieces and step by step. But one of the most, if I have to think about one, was when I discovered the light spectrum, and the manipulation of that, and to start to create my own prismas and do these macro shots from the light reflection. This was a time for me. I start more and more become a light artist, because I got more and more hooked or addicted to art, to light and working with light. So it was like step by step. But that was one of these, and I still work with the prismas. I still do that. So I started to work with my own prisma at least 10, 15 years ago. But most things are most of the things are by accident. You know, you create something and then you find out something totally new, and then you go back to that and make an extra piece of this new development. You know.
Mhm. So you mentioned you in your video you using light to as a tool to tell stories. Can you take an example how you um, tell stories by using your light?
I mean, with stories, because most of my pieces are autobiographic. If still, I'm a light artist, and some people think that's not possible. But of course, in life, you have a lot of experience, and I always try to show my emotions of what's happened. But the title itself is more like everybody can understand and find some story in it. And some stories are really so personal, I wouldn't even talk about that. But let's say the Big Bang, everybody experience really bad things in life, and sometimes looking back like a few years, then you find out it was probably the most important part in your life, because it gets you get in a totally new direction. And that's happened to me a couple of times, you know. And I wouldn't probably sit here and talk to you in an interview if some bad things didn't happen to me in life. So that's I try to show in the piece Big Bang. And also I did last year a piece for the museum in Cologne. It called Rise and Fall, and in a way that's kind of similar, because of course as an artist you have rise and falls, you have up and downs, and every human being has up and downs. That's part of our life, and it's important. That's the reason I came up with the piece Rise and Fall. And so I could continue like the practicing piece. We have one of that in the show, because for me life is practicing until the end of your life, because I'm never finished, you know. There's always a change in my pieces, even, but I try to be myself, you know, and try to be just Hans Kotter and nothing else, you know, and try to do that in my work. For example, I do art pieces now, light pieces, for over 20 years, 25 years. And of course, I work with a lot of different materials and a lot of different light types, you know, from neon light to LED light. And of course, in a way, they look different. But for me, I see there is something in it. So it looks like it's a piece from Hans Kotter. You know, there is still everything is related to each other, and I would say I have my own kind of way to do light pieces.
It's not easy. You create something that's not similar to others. I mean, nowadays it's not easy, right? Because
Yeah,
our
yeah,
history is long, and it's hard to create something that you never seen before. It's
yeah.
it's really
That's
difficult.
true. It's true in a way, but there's always something similar. But I don't even think about that. You know, for
Mhm.
example, a lot of artists, for a couple of years ago, light art became really popular, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, even some painter started to
Mhm.
create light pieces. I would never do
Yes.
that. You know, I would
Yes.
never go for a trend, because if you follow a trend, you're already too late, because the trend is already running. Like in the moment, I have people around me that talk about they will start now doing digital art, because you know in the auction house they sold something for 60 or over 60 million. I mean, that's the wrong way to do something. Also, when I start to create something, I create it for myself. I want to see that, you know. I have an idea, I want to see it, and I don't create that for an audience. And of course, I'm happy if people left my shows and they're happy or they like my work, but that's not my goal. My goal is to create something I believe in, or I like myself, or I want to see myself. So that's the reason my pieces are authentic, and that's the way I work.
So, my last question is,
Yeah.
what's your philosophy of belief? I mean, maybe art is beautiful, or art can bring people happy, or is there any belief you want to deliver or message you want to deliver through the work of your
Uh,
art?
I mean, the messages, of course, because that's the reason all my pieces have a title, because there's a meaning, there's an intention behind that, and I
Mm-hmm.
hope, of course, the people that can see it or understand it in a way. I believe
Mm-hmm.
in that, and I also hope they're and after the show they leave in with a smile in the face because they like the show. But
Mm-hmm.
the most part of the beliefs is to do what I believe in. It means for me, I tell my stories and I try to be authentic. I don't try to be somebody else, and I don't try to make people happy. Like I mentioned a couple of times before, that's my belief. There is
Mm.
no philosophic background behind it because it's just what I try to create and what I love to create. And that's the main goal for me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the interview.
You're very welcome and hope to see you soon in person in
Me,
Taipei.
me too. Hope see you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.